Yeah, okay. Gute Woche, Shavua Tov, and uh, and it's wonderful to see everyone here tonight together in the 3 weeks where there's there's an instruction the Rebbe gives in regard to Jewish unity, especially in the 3 weeks, and it's through the concept of unity and Avas Yisrael and Achdus Yisrael, the love for our fellow Jew, and the unity amongst all Jews, that we bring the building of the Beis Hamikdash Shlishi, and it should be with the Geula Shlima Amit ve'Amit is Teichef u'Miyad Mamash, the scholars of the Rebbe Shlita Melech Ha'Moshiach. So what we want to explain tonight is something very interesting. It's a story, but it's also a story that is connected to one of the directives that the Rebbe gives about the 3 weeks and the 9 days, that we, in order to go and to build the Beis Hamikdash, at least on the spiritual level, if not also on the material level. So we should deal and study in the laws that pertain to the Beis HaBechira, to the Beis HaMikdash. In a Farbrengen in Tafshin Mem Hey, 1985, the Rebbe started to speak about the laws of the Beis HaMikdash. One of the specific laws of the Beis Hamikdash. But beforehand, the Rebbe prefaced this with a statement. And the statement is that in regard to the spiritual status, the spiritual level of a Jew must know that as far as he might have gone, wandered, as far as low as he might have stooped, as in regard to his spirituality, the fact of the matter is that if we only sit ourselves down and learn Hasidus, learn Hasidic philosophy, this is something that will bring us back. It'll bring us to and return us back to our connection with with Hashem and our connection with our spirituality. And then the Rebbe went on to go and to explain the following. It's known halacha in Rambam in regard to the heichal, the sanctuary, and in the heichal itself, the kodesh hakodoshim. There were the two parts that the heichal was divided into: the holy and the holy of holies. In the holy of holies itself, so the Rambam brings in his book of halachas that if there was something that needed to be repaired, something that was run down and had to be fixed, so even though this is the most spiritual and holiest place in the world, the Kodesh HaKadoshim, fact of the matter is that if it needs repairs, so initially a kohen that does not have any blemish is sent in to make the repairs. What happens if there's if there's not a kohen without a blemish? So we can send in a that knows that can do the work. We can send in a kohen even if he is blemished. What happens if we don't have kehanim that are blemished that know to do the work? So it goes down and down in the levels of kedusha and the levels of holiness of Am Yisrael, from a kohen to a Levi, from a Levi to Yisrael, until finally, if there's only a Yisrael that is tomei, that is impure, so he also is allowed to go into the Kedesh HaKadoshim, into the Holy of Holies, in order to go into to fix whatever needs to be fixed. The Rebbe comes and says, this is something that startles a person at first glance. How could this be? First of all, there's 2 points. First of all, as far as the Beis Hamikdash is concerned, the holy temple, and as far as everything that we see, the miracles that were going on in the Beis Hamikdash, the Rebbe gives the example of the showbread. The showbread kept its freshness from 1 week to the next week, until those breads were given to the kehanim that were meant to be given to, and there were new showbreads that were baked, and put onto the Shulchan Azov, onto the golden table. So how could it be, the Rebbe says, that there's something that is in the Kodesh HaKodoshim, not in the Kodesh, like the bread, in the Holy of Holies, that gets run down, that gets how can it be that there is wear and tear in the Holy of Holies? And the second thing is that when we're talking about the fixing of whatever had to be fixed in the Kodesh HaKodoshim, in the Holy of Holies, how could it be that we go so low in our levels of holiness that we can send in a person that is tameh, person that is not that is impure? This seems totally illogical. And the Rebbe comes and explains that this is due to the fact that the Torah wants to teach us a very incredible instruction. When we're talking about a Jew, that might have gone down in a very low situation in spirituality, the fact of the matter is that whatever the situation might be, the Torah comes and wants to teach us that kol yerida is litzorech aliyah, that every descent is for the purpose of an ascent. And therefore, the descent could be even in a situation. The descent could be even in the lowest of situations, that the Jew is totally impure. You can't get lower than that. And once we see that the situation is that the Jew is impure, the person might go and feel that he wants to just pick up his hands and give up. Fact of the matter is, not only shouldn't he give up, but he should know that the entire situation that he was put in, this whole backdrop that he was set in, is in order for him to go and to establish something that can be a correction, that can be a repair, the greatest and the most wondrous of repairs, that is parallel to the Kodesh HaKodoshim, that is parallel to the Holy of Holies. Everyone was in the Farbrengen, everyone was startled to hear the example that the Rebbe gave, that this is the situation that when a person finds himself in that kind of situation, they should just go and sit down and learn Chassidus, and they'll know that the Yerida is for the descent is for the ascent. Excepting one person. There was one bacher that he understood completely everything that was going on. He was totally surprised, but he understood exactly what the Rebbe is talking about. A very short time, just to explain, very short time before the Farbrengen. So the Rebbe went to the mikveh, to Tevel, and usually when the Rebbe, as a principle, when the Rebbe leaves his room, he closes the door. And so once the door is closed, only a person that has a key can enter, like the secretaries. But in this case, for one reason or another, the Rebbe did not close the door totally, but he left it ajar. At that point, a bacher who was not totally stable in his mental state, ran into the Rebbe's room, which by Hasidim is compared to the Holy of Holies, the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Ran into the Rebbe's room and opened there's a water closet, a small bathroom in the room. He ran into the bathroom and locked himself inside the bathroom. Apparently, he wanted to be back in the room when the Rebbe arrived for some reason or another. Rabbi Groner saw what happened, and he immediately called the Bachrim to go and to help and to see what can be done, because the Rebbe is going to be coming back from the mikveh in a very short while, and this Bacher locked himself in. Immediately, there were 3 Bachrim that went, and they took tools, and they popped the hinges of the door of the bathroom. And once they popped the hinges, they just removed the door, and they very pleasantly escorted the Bacher out of the Rebbe's room. And that's how they were able to get the Rebbe, to get the Bacher out. And afterwards, they went and they fixed the hinges again, so the door is in functioning order. And they left the room. After they left the room, the Baruch Hashem, everything was under control. The Bachurim were feeling good, excepting one of the three Bachurim. Why was he not feeling good? He knew that what he did was very important. He knew that what he did was a holy act. But at the same time, the custom is, and this is amongst Chassidim, that a chassid doesn't go into the Rebbe's room unless he toiveled in the mikveh before. And at that point, at that point, he had not been in the mikveh yet. So he felt terrible. He felt very bad. He felt, how could I have gone into the Holy of Holies and I was tomei, and I was impure? And the fact of the matter is, the Bacher felt so bad that he decided to write a letter to ask forgiveness of the Rebbe due to the fact of entering the Rebbe's room, and he was not in the mikveh yet, but under the circumstances, he did. He didn't receive an answer from the Rebbe. And he thought, wow, that's like hot water. That's like, that's like telling him that you're not forgiven, or something like that, chas v'sholom, God forbid. Then came the Farbrengen, and the Rebbe spoke about the fact that a person, who is the person that is allowed to go into the Holy of Holies, into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, in the sanctuary of the Beis HaMikdash, to go if there was something that was worn down, something that had to be repaired. And the Rebbe went through the entire hierarchy, from the Kohen that doesn't have a blemish to the Yisrael that is impure. And here, one of the Bacher's friends, he nudges the other Bacher, and he says, "Did you hear that? Did you hear that? The Rebbe is speaking about you. The Rebbe is answering your question, your letter of forgiveness that you wrote in. He's answering your letter here and now in the Farbrengen." And it was totally a surprise. It caught the Bacher off guard. But the Rebbe comes and tells us, not only to this Bacher, but to each and every one of us, that if for one reason or another, chas v'sholom, a person might have diminished in one's spiritual status, one's spiritual situation, and it doesn't make a difference how far he might have gone, and how distant he might have become from kedusha, from holiness. The fact of the matter is that, first of all, the person has to realize, we have to realize, that everything is under hashgacha pratis, everything is under divine providence. Hashem is running the world. It's not us. And second of all, the fact of the matter is that we have to understand that if we have come to such a low situation, so the situation is only for the purpose of an elevation, only for the purpose of the descent bringing us to a higher ascent. And not only to a higher ascent, but this is coming and taking us to something that, like we said before, is parallel to something that is a rectification, a tikkun, a repair in the Holy of Holies, in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Yehi Ratzon that through all our avodah, through all our service, we should come finally to bring ourselves closer, and through this bringing our fellow Jew closer in a manner of Avos Yisrael and Achdus Yisrael, to finally bringing not only a tikkun in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, not only a repair in the Holy of Holies, But bringing the entire status of the Beis Hamikdash Hashlishi v'Hanitzchi, the Thursdays should be transformed liyemei sosin v'simcha u'mayadim tevim, to happiness and joyous days, and to good festivals. Teichef miyad mamish, with these goals of the Rebbe Shlita Melech Ha'Moshiach. Yechi Adonenu Moreinu v'Rabbeinu HaMelech HaMoshiach Chai v'Kayam le'olam voed. Amen. And a good Chodesh. This coming Shabbos is Rosh Chodesh. A good Chodesh Tov. Moshiach now.